The Disney Plus Hulu HBO Max bundle. The ultimate bundle at an unbelievable price. Starting at $19.99 a month. On Disney Plus, go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in The End of an Era.
Every single one of us all clicked together.
Battle it out with The Roses on Hulu.
Things are getting a little out of hand.
Oh, you think?
And don't miss The Conjuring, Last Rites on HBO Max.
I don't know how to protect you this time.
All these and more streaming this month. Plans starting at $19.99 a month. Terms apply. Visit Disney Plus Hulu HBO Max bundle.com for details.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
Hey, where you been? Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means, and that's Andrew Gillis. And signing day is 24 hours away as you're listening to this podcast. We're talking to Ryan Day on Tuesday, and we're talking to him about football. And then we're going to talk with him on Wednesday, and we're going to talk to him about new football, which is teenagers who will be here, most of which will be here in January as early enrollees, because along with there being, conference championship game this weekend, this sport thought it was a good idea to put signing day in the smack dab middle of all of that, because that always makes sense to, have the NFL draft on the same weekend as you're having what is essentially the wild card round of the playoff. I think that's a good way to describe it. Or like if the divisional round had a play-in game or something like that. I don't know. This sport doesn't make any sense, and it's never make any sense. As these two pointed out to me when we were making our drive back from Ann Arbor, that the sport's never made any sense. It's probably never going to make any sense, and it's whatever. But Ohio State, as of this moment, has the number 6 class in the country, 28 commitments headlined by 1 5-star recruit, Chris Henry Jr. They'll also have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other top 100 recruits total in this class. They've been busy, Andrew, since the last time we talked about recruiting 2 weeks ago. In fact, as this podcast posted on November 18th, they got busy and they added Braxton Rembert, the number 358 player, number 22 edge out of Georgia. He actually goes to the same high school Caleb Downs went to in Mill Creek. Here's the way let's do this. Who on Ohio State's roster right now, if this kid hits, is he?
He's Arvell Reese. Now, I've written about this like multiple times, and I think I've texted about this once or twice. So if you do subscribe to the text, you probably have heard this from me. I think if you look at Braxton Rembert and say, well, we have Arvell Reese coming down the pipeline, I think that's probably a bad way to look at it, because Arvell Reese may be like a top 3 pick, top 5 pick. And all due respect to the wonderful players that Ohio State is recruiting in their 2026, 2027, and 2028 recruiting classes, that's not the bar. Like, that can't be the bar for success, right? But this is the body type that you need for that. He got recruited by James Laurinaitis. He only had 13 offers. You read some of them, it's like Army, Navy, Air Force. They were in on the mix. South Florida was there. A lot of school like William & Mary, Wofford, Samford, Gardner-Webb, East Tennessee State. He commits to Wake Forest, and then Ohio State gets involved. And I think it was very clear it was, if you want to come to Ohio State, we will take you. And it was probably the other way around, more of, we want you at Ohio State. Come on, man. So he eventually committed, and Ohio State has a massive, literally he's 6'5", 200 pounds. He plays basketball. He was the Region 8, I believe, if I'm reading this correctly, the 8-6A Region Player of the Year in basketball in his junior year. This kid's long. He's got long arms. He can run. He's athletic. You watch his highlight tape and his huddle tape, and you're like, wow, like this is different. This is not something that Ohio State had. And I'm going to be honest with you. See, when I first started this, like when we first started doing these recruiting pods between you and me, when I showed up, I don't think Ohio State would have taken Braxton Rembert 2 years ago. I don't think they're recruiting Braxton Rembert a couple of years ago. And I've written about this once or twice for the site. Like, I think Matt Patricia's addition has added a new dynamic to this. So, yeah, Braxton Rembert, really, really exciting add, a really, really intriguing add to this class because the body type is this outside linebacker that can play as a pass rusher that you could drop into coverage that he can. I'm fascinated to see what Ohio State does. And I really, really like this addition.
And I think that's on two fronts, right? There's the type of player he might be probably fits this scheme more than it did previous defensive schemes since Ryan Day has been the head coach, but then also just, the pedigree of the player. I don't know if Ohio State maybe would have been flipping him this late in a class that's already north of 25, but you have been adding 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 kids potentially into this class. So that's on that side of it. I want to talk about these next two people in tandem because it felt like one in and one out in terms of what their description is and also what Ohio State's going to do with them. And that's Darius McKinley, the number 599 player and number 72 defensive lineman. He's 6'3", 270 pounds. He's from Louisiana. Ohio State's going to have two Louisiana kids in this class. And they took one of them as a kid who is like 15 minutes away from LSU's campus. And the other one, they flipped from LSU to take him. And then you got Cam Brickle, the number 571 player, number 64 defensive lineman from IMG Academy, though I think he's originally from Pennsylvania, and he's 6'2", 305 pounds. That feels like Brickle isn't a loss, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to Cameron at all. Like I'm sure he's a fine player, and he'll find somewhere to play. Brickle isn't a loss. Even if you didn't get Darius McKinley, but even from a number standpoint, it's kind of one in and one out because they're both kind of the same thing. Right.
Yeah, they're both kind of the same type of players, 6'3", 270 and 6'2", 305. As I understand it, Maryland has kind of gotten serious. Now, whether you want to say they've gotten serious or they've gotten serious with quotation marks, they have decided to keep Mike Locksley for another year. And one of those things, I think you're seeing this now in college football where the new "we'll keep the head coach but fire his coordinators" is we will keep everybody, but just instead of paying a bunch of buyouts, we'll just put $8 million, I just picked a number, into the NIL collective and just say, well, like, what if we gave them a better roster? Maryland's doing that. Florida State's doing that. Wisconsin's doing that. That's how this happens. So the headline of this is, why Mike Locksley staying at Maryland means that Ohio State earned a commitment flip from Darius McKinley. Because Cameron Brickle, as I understand, I think Maryland kind of started to up the pressure there, and I think Ohio State saw maybe an ability to pivot. Obviously McKinley, LSU commit, top 600 kid, barely number 599 in the class. Notably, he does have a brother who was an interior lineman, and he's like 6'6", 300 pounds. He plays at LSU. He was in the 2024 class. He was a 5-star player. So a lot of people have kind of hypothesized and pontificated of like, hey, what happens if he enters the portal after this year? I mean, obviously LSU is very much in the news right now. Yeah, they add McKinley. I like him. He's an interior player. Just you see the base, you see the building blocks. I think you can, kind of map out a similar projection. I think Brickle was a fine player too. Like Brickle technically in the 247 composite is ranked higher, but they're 28 spots difference. I think they're pretty similar players. And I think with Maryland pushing and with the chaos at LSU and with Ohio State's kind of, more presence down south, I think they saw a chance to pivot, and I think it worked. So I think they like McKinley better. They added basically a 1-for-1 swap, McKinley for Brickle. Brickle goes to Maryland. McKinley goes to Ohio State. LSU gets nothing. And I think you kind of look at this defensive line class fundamentally really unchanged from a month ago. And that's, I'm not trying to disrespect McKinley or Brickle, but you're adding a 3-star defensive tackle who's, hey, we'll see what he's going to be in a year or two. And I think both of those guys fit that billing.
When you say some people have been hypothesizing, you can just say my name.
That wasn't a point to you. That was you see all the LSU boards and LSU reporters.
Oh, no, that's me.
Saying,
I have burners.
That his brother is on the team, and
I have burners. I have burners on the LSU board. Burners. saying, man.
You're just creating the lunatic. What if you just are the lunatic fringe? Just you have a million different burners.
Yeah, I'm a friend. I'm everybody's fringe. His brother was a number 14 player, number 4 defensive lineman in the 2024 recruiting class. And you can't, I get it. His like counting stats aren't great, but he's played over 400 snaps the last 2 years, and he's 6'6", 308 pounds. Ohio State doesn't have a guy who's 6'6", 308 pounds who can move the way Dominic McKinley can move. And again, I'm trying my best to not always talk so flippant about the portal, but we live in a world where the college sports don't make sense. Everything is flippant. And I mean, part of the reason he was probably headed to LSU is, yes, they're from Louisiana, but also family, right? And LSU fired Brian Kelly. Obviously, they just hired Lane Kiffin, and nobody asked for this drama I've ever seen in my life. And I don't know. Let's see what Dominic McKinley does. Does he want to join his brother up here? Right. And I mean, we're looking at Matt Patricia's scheme and looking at what Caden McDonald is doing, and he's undersized and he's playing that well. Imagine if Matt Patricia had a dude who's 6'6" in the middle of all that, doing all that. And I'm not saying that Dominic McKinley is as good as what Caden McDonald has been this year, but I am saying 6'6" nose tackle, former 5-star recruit. Let's just see what happens there, because I mean, his brother Darius is kind of the same thing, obviously, and Cameron Brickle would have been that as well. So a nose for a nose, if I do add. That was corny. Oh, well.
I liked it.
Okay. That's all the recent additions and subtractions from a class that has 28 players in it. As of right now, Ohio State has lost 4 players to decommitment. Jacob Weatherspoon, a 4-star cornerback from Ohio, flipped to North Carolina. Aaron Thomas, a 3-star offensive tackle, flipped to Minnesota. Cameron Brickle has not chosen a new school yet as a 3-star defensive lineman. And then 3-star tight end Corbin Foreman flipped to Florida State. We're going to take a quick break here, and then when we come back, let's find out how drama-free Ohio State's early signing period may or may not be here on Buckeye Talk.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
Introducing Oakley Meta Vanguard, the new performance AI glasses designed for athletes. With hands-free capture on an action-ready ultra-wide camera, powerful open-ear speakers, and built-in Meta AI that syncs with your Garmin devices for real-time insights while you train. Take your performance to the next level with Oakley Meta Vanguard. Athletic intelligence is here. Learn more on meta.com.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means and Andrew Gillis previewing Ohio State's signing day ahead of the 2026 recruiting class, which is 6th in the country right now with 28 commitments. That's the most. Assuming they sign all 28 of these guys, this will be the largest class of the Ryan Day era, surpassing. They had 25, I believe, in the 2020 recruiting class. I guess, which side do you want to start on? Do you want to start on, hey, Andrew, should I be freaked out that Ohio State's going to lose this kid? Or should we start on, hey, Andrew, should I be freaked out because Ohio State might steal this kid?
Let's talk about the positives, because I think there's more positive than negative going into this one. We'll talk about let's talk about CJ Brana, because he's just been in the news for a little bit. He is still out there. He is the number 110 overall prospect, the number 12 corner in the 2026 class. Ohio State has been after him. They had an OV on November 15th. This is me hypothesizing. The longer it goes and the longer it has gone, I think the worse you feel about Brana ending up with the Buckeyes.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was definitely a lot of movement and a lot of talk about a pretty quick flip after that visit on November 15th. That obviously didn't happen. So right now, I would probably say he ends with Florida. They just hired John Summerall, the coach from Tulane. You have to imagine that he has spent I think they hired him. We were on the way back from Michigan. I believe they hired him on Sunday morning. You have to imagine that he has spent his last 24 hours as we record this on Monday. And this is important to know. We are recording this Monday afternoon. So if any news breaks at 2 p.m., I hope it doesn't, but just for timestamp's sake, Brana, I'm assuming, has received a phone call or two from John Summerall and received a phone call or two from the Gators about trying to keep his services. So he is still out there. I don't know if that's going to be a positive flip for Ohio State, but he is still out there. Just wanted to bring him up of like, hey, Ohio State is in the market here, I think, for another corner in this class, but I'm kind of starting to wonder if that's going to come via the portal. Davison Igbinosun and Lorenzo Styles are both going to depart at the end of the season. Jermaine Matthews is draft eligible. I think we would probably expect him to come back. Aaron Scott, second-year player. Devin Sanchez, first-year player. And then you've got some 3 reserves behind him. Miles Lockhart, redshirt freshman. Bryce West, redshirt freshman. And Jordan Woods is a true freshman. I think you probably want to add something else to that group. You've got Jordan Thomas, who Ohio State really, really likes, as like just do it all, tackles, covers, does everything well, very just kind of no nonsense corner. He's at a Bergen Catholic. They've liked him for quite a long time. Another recent flip he committed in the beginning of November was Jay Timmons. Really athletic, like really, really athletic. You see a lot of Jermaine Matthews there. So maybe the portal is not great for Ohio State's cornerback room and they need to hit one. Maybe they feel good about the room. I don't know, but they had been looking for another corner. Brana doesn't, at this point, at 12:33 p.m. on Monday, I would say he doesn't end up in Ohio State's class just because of how long this has taken. But of course, he is still.
Yeah, I think Jermaine Matthews' decision after the season is probably going to play a fundamental part in all this, which is why, again, none of this makes sense because the portal opens at a time when Ohio State's season goes away. It looks like it's headed right now. Jermaine Matthews isn't going to have to make that decision until late January of what he decides to do. And the portal is not going to be open in late January for Ohio State to react to that. So I do wonder, you almost have to push for those, like, hey, what way are you leaning so we know how to operate here?
Yeah.
Right?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, it's you have to push which way you're leaning, but you also kind of leave yourself open to the possibility, like, Ohio State doesn't think Jermaine Matthews is a bad football player. In fact, they think quite the opposite. So what do you think he's going to get? Like, is Ohio State thinking right now, oh, we might get to the playoff and he gets exposed, or we might get to the playoff and this Saturday, let's consider this a postseason game because it kind of is, but it kind of isn't at the same time because it's not an elimination game. Ohio State gets to the Indiana Big Ten championship game and they go, Jermaine Matthews has played the best game of his life. And now all of a sudden, NFL draft people are talking about him in a different way maybe than they were a few weeks ago. And then, oh, look, in the first round of the playoff, we play Bama. And he's been lined up on Ryan Williams a lot, and Ryan Williams hasn't done anything. Or we play insert team with a good quarterback and a good receiver here, and all of a sudden things change. And it's like, hey, you know how you were a third-round pick? Now you're a top 40. And it's like, whoa, that can change. So, yeah, that is the trouble here, which is why I think Ohio State will probably be pretty aggressive in the portal, and I think corner is going to be one of those.
It's a guy like Carnell. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah,
it's
right.
Jermaine's a borderline guy where I think you can wrap your head around the idea of him doing either or in this situation. Okay, so that's CJ Brana. That's probably the most prominent. Like, hey, is Ohio State going to flip this guy? Now, is there anybody else that over the next couple of days here? Because obviously signing day starts on December 3rd. But it's open from Wednesday through Friday. So is there anybody Ohio State this week people should be on the lookout for? They might flip this kid.
Yeah, there's a local kid, Caden Gebhardt. He attends Olentangy. which is the same school as CJ Santa, the linebacker in Ohio State's class, and there's really not a worry there about Santa. But Gebhardt is a Clemson commit. He committed on March 11th. I remember there was a point during the spring where it kind of felt like, man, Maxwell Riley might go to Clemson, and Caden Gebhardt might go to Clemson, and Gebhardt committed to Clemson, and Riley obviously committed to Ohio State. But you started to think to yourself like, whoa, this might not be, this might not be ideal for Ohio State, and it, they split the difference there. But I was reading a story from the Clemson, I believe it was the 247 page, and they were talking about Clemson's safeties coach, Mickey Kahn. And they were basically saying he is the co-defensive coordinator and safeties coach. He has been at Clemson for quite some time. He has been there basically since their title run began. He showed up in 2016. He also played at Bama, as I'm looking at his Wikipedia page right now. He played at Bama, coached at Bama, so I wonder if he was there with Dabo. But anyway, they go back a long way, but there definitely is, at least in Clemson circles, some concern about, and I don't even know if I would call it concern. There definitely is some discussion about whether he's going to be retained. I'm sure Ohio State is probably focusing on that too. So Gebhardt, number 5, 45 overall prospect in the class, number 44 safety, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's somebody that you look at and say, this is a kid maybe that you would expect to end up in Ohio State's classes generally.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they might have to take the scenic route to get there would be certainly interesting, but they might get there anyway. I think we were driving up to Michigan, or we were in Michigan or something, and it's very funny because, at that moment you're thinking, oh, I have to be focused on the Michigan game. And I think Stephen or Stefan showed me the tweet like, hey, did you see this? Wilfong put in a prediction for him to flip. So there have been a couple national people that, are plugged into Clemson's program who have predicted this. Ohio State has Blaine Bradford in the class. He's now a 4-star prospect, number 71 overall. They've got Simeon Caldwell. He's a top 200 kid. He's listed at 6'1.5", 195. That's not true. He's like 6'3". He's a really, really big kid, but they do like him at safety. I think I got told from somebody in the building, I think it was like a 4.3, 4.35, something in the 4.3s at a 40, and they kind of looked at each other and went, whoa, like this is different. And then they have Kamari Bing. He is a San Francisco kid out of Baltimore, one of the best programs on the East Coast. He flipped from Maryland. Alabama tried to get in the mix there. Maryland was in the mix for a little bit, but obviously he decides to go to Ohio State. So you have 3 safeties in this class. I would not be stunned if they take Gebhardt, because we talk about where this safety room is headed, right? That's the whole point of this. Caleb Downs is going to leave. Malik Hartford has not played all year with the intention of redshirting.
With that being said, he's also been hurt.
Yes.
So 2 things. Intention of redshirt. Also, arm has been in a sling for like a month and a half.
So we'll see what happens with Malik Hartford. Keenan Nelson's still here, but I don't think he's going to factor into the 2 deep anytime soon. There's Jalen McClain. He's going to return next year, and he'll be one of your 2 safeties. Then you got some options, and Fahim Delane will be entering his 2nd year. Leroy Roker will be entering his 3rd year. Deshaun Stewart and Cody Haddad entering their 2nd years. I mentioned the 3 safeties that they're bringing in. It's a lot of names. I do wonder if they're going to hit the portal for another safety. Like, it would not stun me if, depending on what happens at corner, if Ohio State has added 2 starters in the secondary from the transfer portal. I don't think that is an insane proposition if you think that Jalen McClain can get paired with somebody. And of course, all this depends on the right player being available at the right price and all this other stuff. That would not stun me, but I do think Ohio State is looking at that safety room. And like you were saying, Stephen, it's NFL draft decisions, but it's also transfer portal decisions, right? You kind of have to re-recruit your roster every single year now. That's just the way that this thing goes. And I think Ohio State is probably looking at this going, you know what, maybe we should protect ourselves with some depth. And I think adding a kid like Gebhardt, a local kid, Lewis Center, Ohio, where he goes to high school, is, 15, 20 minutes away from Columbus, from Ohio State's campus. It's not far at all. So we'll see. This is something that is obviously going to have to get resolved in the next 24 hours, 48 hours. But Gebhardt is an option for Ohio State.
Okay. I'm assuming that's it. It's Brana and Gebhardt in terms of.
Yeah, those are the 2 that appear to be the most likely. Unless, look, It's National Signing Day. Maybe
Sure.
something pops up out of nowhere, but those are the two right now.
Okay. Now let's talk about some receivers.
Yeah, let's go to Jaden Ricketts first.
Okay.
Because I think that's a quicker kind of conversation here. This one came as a surprise to me. Jaden Ricketts, who has been committed since November 16th, 2024, so more than a year. He attends Watkins Memorial in Pataskala, which is, 20, 30 minutes east of Columbus. 424 overall prospect, number 62 receiver in the composite rankings. He took an official visit to West Virginia this past weekend. That, like I said, that came as a surprise to me. I think that was kind of a surprise to a bunch of different people, kind of outside things. And by that, I mean not in the program. So Ricketts is being courted by West Virginia. That is just something that we're going to have to monitor. We'll see. I don't know if this was a kids getting cold feet situation going into signing day because they have 5 receivers in this class, including Ricketts. They've got 5-star Chris Henry Jr. They've got 4-star Caden Dixon-Wyatt. They've got 4-star Jaquaden Guilford. And then they've got 3-star Brock Boyd. Brock Boyd, I have no concerns about joining this class. He flipped from TCU. I think Brock Boyd is the one where you say, lock it in, he's coming to Ohio State. 100 million%. Ricketts is interesting. This is just going to be a thing to monitor over the next 48 hours. You said this about Brickell leaving the class. Like, just with the level of receiver that Ohio State brings in, I don't know if Ohio State's class, and I don't think Ohio State's class fundamentally changes if Ricketts decides to go to West Virginia and play for the Mountaineers. So they would still have 4. We have kind of thrown about, I don't know if on the podcast or off the podcast, we have kind of thrown about this hypothetical of Ohio State actually going to the transfer portal for a receiver this year, and maybe that being something that's possible. Carnell Tate's he's gonna go. You have Brandon Ennis, who has a decision to make, but I think all 3 of us, Steven, I think you, me, Stefan, we all predicted him to come back. JJ will come back. And then you have a question, and I mean, David Adolph's getting reps right now. And I think a lot of people thought that was going to be Mylan Graham. Do they feel confident in Quincy Porter, who has not really been healthy? He's kind of been on and off the availability report all year. Is he going to be ready to go? There's a lot of questions at that receiver room. You feel really good about this class as a whole with 5. I don't think that would fundamentally change if Ricketts goes, but he is a speedster, and I think Ohio State was looking to develop that speed and kind of develop his other traits when he gets to come.
Wait, Ricketts is going to flip to West Virginia? I thought Chris Henry Jr. was going to flip to West Virginia because his dad played there. That's what the Twitters told me.
I think they tried.
I tried to flip him to Kent State, and that didn't work. So, I don't know.
I think I've told the story on the podcast of how I tried to recruit Caleb Williams to come to the Ohio Bobcats, but
yeah, so trying is not a thing. All right, everybody can try to do
the Hail Mary DM, but I don't think it's going to work. Obviously, he's got the family ties there to West Virginia, and I think it just kind of got out that I think it originated probably from somebody in the West Virginia circles of hey, they tried.
Yeah, it didn't originate anywhere else.
Yeah, I was I think they tried. I think they threw the Hail Mary. Yeah.
Okay, but to be serious,
I don't think he's going to go to West Virginia.
No,
he's not going to West Virginia.
I'm being facetious. In all seriousness, though, obviously Oregon, Chris Henry Jr. technically shut down his recruitment months ago, and for being technical, but I guess shut down doesn't actually mean anything. It's just another graphic that Hayes Fawcett can make, and there's nothing wrong with that. Do what you got to do. But Oregon has been obviously poking at this. Tell me if I'm reading this right. This is like Jeremiah Smith and how Miami never stopped poking at Jeremiah Smith. But unless something fundamentally drastic happens, Jeremiah Smith was always going to be a Buckeye. Chris Henry Jr. has been committed to Ohio State since July 28th, 2023. And unless something fundamentally changes at Ohio State, and that's not just Brian Hartline. I understand there are some jobs that are open right now that I think Brian Hartline might be a good fit at, like the Kentucky job. And it's not just because his brother played there. I think his brother's on the staff. But also, if we're going to do that, Oregon's offensive coordinator, Will Stein, has also been in some scuttlebutt about taking the Kentucky job. But the point of the matter is, the JJ situation was he committed to Ohio State. Miami spent a year trying to flip him. And unless something crazy happened at Ohio State, he wasn't going to flip. Chris Henry Jr. has been committed to Ohio State for 2 years, and Oregon's been trying to flip him. And unless something crazy happens at Ohio State, Oregon's not flipping.
So there's a couple different things there. I don't know. I don't know if this is like a JJ situation, because with Jeremiah Smith, there definitely was concern in the Woody on National Signing Day. And I think the first time that Day has ever spoken about this publicly was actually recently. It was in the recently released Rabinowitz book, where he said that he got told that he might flip to Miami on signing day, that this was a possibility, and there was genuine concern there. I mean, we could talk about Ryan Day kind of having the fake pass out at the podium thing. There was definite legitimate concern with Jeremiah Smith. There was a definite worry that Miami was going to be able to land him at the 11th hour. With Chris Henry Jr., this has been a tough one to get a read on. So I sent this text right as we got on the pod. He doesn't do many interviews. Steve, one of the things that Steve and I talked about on the pod was if you cover Florida and Florida State or any other program, you're asking Jeremiah Smith about Florida and Florida State. So he was not really answering questions about Ohio State all the time. And so I think there was definitely maybe more noise on the public, but there was definitely the concern. There was definitely worry that Jeremiah Smith was not going to end up in Ohio State's class. But with Chris Henry Jr., I think there's a level of concern again, but it's more in the concern of Oregon is just throwing a ton of money at him. And look,
yeah, but
Ohio State he's not going to play at Ohio State for free.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody's throwing a ton of money at everybody. That's how this works. Do you actually think he's flipping to Oregon, or do you think he signs with Ohio State?
I think he's going to sign with Ohio State.
All right. So that's why when people say, oh, Oregon or Miami or Ohio State or anybody else, yeah, these kids are good. Everybody's getting paid.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Yeah, it's I think it's unsettling. Maybe is that, I don't know, maybe is that the right word?
No, sure. I think, which is, and again, I get it. People were concerned in the Woody that Jeremiah was going to flip to Miami. They were never not concerned about that. But also, it had been voiced to them numerous times that as long as these people were here, I was coming to Ohio State. Ryan Day did that. It was a little performative, but it's also finally, we don't have to deal with the unsettling anymore, at least not from a recruiting standpoint. Obviously, every offseason, someone's going to come in here and try to poach JJ and throw a bunch of money at him, right? That's just how this is going to go. But the years of, he's been committed, but he's also not in the building right now, so anything can happen, of course, that can be unsettling. But at the end of the day, they got through it, and it was a relief. I don't know if Ryan Day on Wednesday is going to give the same type of reaction. Because also Chris Henry Jr. isn't necessarily – Chris Henry Jr. is a very, very good football player. Let me make that
he's the number 10 overall player in the country.
Yeah, he also – and given the way we've looked at these receivers this year, I also wouldn't be shocked if he comes in here and starts day one. I won't be shocked if he doesn't. Whatever, either way. But JJ was the difference between this team winning a national championship last year and not winning a national championship. Quite frankly, given the way the season ended, JJ was maybe the difference between Ohio State winning a national championship and Ryan Day getting fired. That's the level of player he is. So I don't know if Day is going to, when it's official that Chris Henry has signed and they're tweeting him out, he's going to be up there, oh, thank you. But
you hear the sigh, yeah.
But recruiting is stressful. But that's what the money is for.
Yeah, and the thing that's tough, I remember Mater Day lost in the playoffs, and this is a sidebar to our other guy that we're going to talk about, Caden Dixon-Wyatt, his teammate, a 4-star receiver.
We can talk about him too, because we don't want to.
Yeah, well, I just want to bring him up. 6'2", 180, number 135 overall prospect in the class. He committed to Ohio State in May. Teammate of Chris Henry Jr.'s, like I said. They lost in the playoffs, and there was a national reporter and a couple local reporters that were there, and Caden Dixon-Wyatt had basically said, yeah, I can't wait to get to Ohio State, that type of answer, right? And Chris Henry Jr. just didn't talk about Ohio State. He didn't talk about his recruitment. He just didn't talk about his recruitment at all. So
sounds like
Henry doesn't do a lot of interviews, and I think that's
that sounds like a kid who's tired of somebody coming to his school every 2 weeks and asking him if he's going to flip.
Yeah, well, it's that, and it's also just, I said this again in that one text, Chris Henry Jr.'s commitment to Ohio State predates my time on this podcast. Yeah. So think about how long you, dear Buckeye Talk listeners, have been hearing my voice. That was before I got here. Yeah. That was like literally I showed up and I was still packing boxes in Cincinnati, moving up to Columbus. And Steven sent the text this is how we do things. This is the example of this. I don't even know if I had done a podcast yet when he committed, because it was at, I forget what event it was at, but it was something.
He was on Ohio State. He had just come to Ohio State for a visit, and he committed as he was walking out the door.
Yeah. Okay. So he committed to Ohio State. Like, yeah, that's how long this has been. So I think it's just he's probably tired about people asking him if he's going to flip. He's also probably tired about just like talking about his recruitment because he's been doing it for 3 years now. And it's been the same thing. I'm committed to Ohio State. Yes, other programs are pushing. I like Oregon a lot. I like USC a lot, but I'm committed to Ohio State. Like, there's only so many times you can give that answer before you go insane.
Especially when you're going to give that answer and someone else is going to like write a story that's the polar opposite tone of what you just said.
Maybe.
It's not maybe. No, it's listen, if someone came to you every single day and said, "Hey, I know you're employed at cleveland.com. I know you love your job. I know all that, but are you going to leave and go work at the New York Times?" And you go, "No, I'm locked in with cleveland.com. Of course, New York Times keeps calling me every day, but I like my job at cleveland.com. I'm staying here." Okay. And then the story is breaking. New York Times trying to flip the employment of a cleveland.com writer. I didn't say that. I said, yeah, they're trying, but like I'm locked in here. Okay, cool. 2 weeks later, hey, Andrew, you still like it at cleveland.com? Yeah, I like it at cleveland.com. Is New York Times trying to flip you? Yeah, they're trying to flip me, but I like being at cleveland.com. Breaking again. New York Times trying to flip him. Will he actually take it?
And
3 weeks later.
And then that's a good example because then you know what and then like we talk about Ohio State, like blah, blah, blah. Like, should Ohio State be worried? And it's like, okay, Ohio State might not be worried, but one, these kids are 17, 18 years old. And two, if cleveland.com keeps hearing New York Times calling Andrew every day, New York Times calling Andrew every day, you know what they're going to think? What if one day he changes his mind?
Yeah.
What if the New York Times just says something to him that clicks?
And I get that. Chris Henry's 17, 18 years, whatever. This is about the way the information has been presented. And Chris Henry Jr. is not an idiot. He also grew up, his dad's an NFL player. He knows the right people. So after a while of you, Andrew, giving the same answer of, hey, yes, New York Times keeps calling me, but I like my job at cleveland.com. I want to stay here. And then you see how it turns out. Wouldn't you get sick of it and go, I'm just not going to answer it anymore. I'm not going to talk about it. So I get it. I get why Chris Henry doesn't want to talk about his recruitment anymore. If he flips, then he flips. But to have to answer the same question your entire senior year of high school, never give a different answer, and then see how that answer is presented to the world every single time. At some point, you just get sick of getting painted in this bad light.
Yeah, and
that's all it is. And so I get it. It's unfortunate because then he's going to get here and he's already going to have a way that he approaches the media. So when he gets here and we want to talk to him about him as a football player, it's kind of already tainted. But it's unfortunate. But that's part of the business. I get it.
Yeah,
so
and
I'm not going to.
The last thing I just want to touch on Hayden Dixon Wyatt because in case people like there has been kind of the same thing. More so with it's with Oregon a little bit, but also with USC. Caden Dixon Wyatt, Lincoln Riley, and USC want to keep him on the West Coast. He did talk after that game, and I have the quote here, quote, about signing with Ohio State, quote, I'm very confident, and then, quote, it's looking like Ohio State.
Okay.
Get to go into that next chapter, me and my boy Chris, to compete at the next level and show the world what we are about. So, I mean, he has a modern-day teammate, Mark Bowman, who's a 5-star tight end, and there's a couple other kids on that team who are definitely, like, trying to get him to go to USC. But, again, quote, it's looking like Ohio State, and then separate quote, I'm very confident in signing with Ohio State. So, Caden Dixon Wyatt, you feel really good about. You feel pretty good about. Like, again, I was talking with one of the other recruiting writers on the OSU beat a couple of weeks ago, and we were just kind of throwing out a bunch of names just as like fun hypotheticals. We were throwing out Jameer Brown. We were throwing out Chris Henry Jr. We were throwing out Brady Edmonds. We were like every kid in the class. We were just kind of doing this like between us, just hanging out. And no answer was 100% because it's recruiting in 2025. And I think fans just kind of have to live with that of just there's really not ever going to be a 100% I'm locked in commitment because as you are seeing right now, Chris Henry Jr. announced in the summer, I'm locked in, I'm going to Ohio State. And people are still like, but no, wait. So people will always try, but you should feel pretty confident that I think Caden Dixon Wyatt and Chris Henry Jr. end up at Ohio State. And I think bare minimum, you're talking a 4-man class, and that's even if Ricketts goes to West Virginia. So Ohio State's recruiting class, they're once again at receiver elite. If I had to bet right now, I would probably say 5 and then 4 in terms of likeliest odds. There hadn't been a lot of smoke with the Ricketts thing beforehand. So I think Ohio State's going to bring in their full crop of receivers. And it's something to monitor in the next 48 hours, I would say.
Yeah. And I understand
more than it is worry.
It's the best receiver in the country. So we'll see what happens, right? And it's not like Oregon didn't flip a 5-star corner from Ohio State last cycle. So Oregon flipped. In fact, Oregon's flipped a player.
A receiver, Jeremiah
Right.
McClellan,
Oregon has flipped a player from Ohio State's recruiting class one signing day or the week of signing day for the last 2 years. So like Oregon doing it again. It's not a shocking thing that they're trying to do that again. And I guess we'll see whether it happens or not. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Signing day is tomorrow through Friday. Ohio State trying to hold on to 28 commits and maybe add a few others in the process. They have the number 6 class in the country. As those things are happening, as we're talking with Day this week about his class and about preparations for the Big Ten Championship game, we bring it to you through the text first, 614-350-5. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. For Andrew Gillis, I'm Stephen Means. Talk to you guys later.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.